Hi, my name's Danimal Cannon. I'm manning the ops station. Sensors detect episode number 2 of Trek Watch happening right now. Welcome back for episode 2 of Trek Watch. Star Trek The Next Generation is my favorite show, and I will be ranking and reviewing every single episode until we have a tier ranking of every episode. We are going in order, so you know what that means. It's time for The Naked Now. This is the second episode of Trek Watch, but technically this is actually the third episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. Encounter at Farpoint originally aired as episodes 1 and 2, so if the numbers don't quite line up, in fact, I probably will switch over to the way that the episodes are numbered according to the show, but this is our second episode, so thanks for coming back. So I really don't know where to start with this episode, so why don't we just dive into the plot, and then we'll talk about it later. And believe you me, ooh, there are things to talk about. So, starting off, the Enterprise is rendezvousing with the USS Tsiolkovsky, who is on a science mission studying a red supergiant star that's collapsing into a white dwarf. However, as a big astronomy nerd, I have to let you know, red supergiants don't turn into white dwarfs, they turn into neutron stars or black holes. Oops, I can't help myself. I'm compelled to correct this, I'm sorry. Picard mentions that they're going there because they've been receiving some strange messages.
Well, hello, Enterprise. Welcome. I hope you have a lot of pretty boys on board, because I'm willing and waiting.
Yep, it's this episode. Strap yourself in, folks. This is happening. The horniest episode of Star Trek ever. Probably. So the crew beams aboard the Tsiolkovsky to find the aftermath of a drug-fueled orgy. Because, of course, they did.
Indications of what humans would call a wild party?
I noticed that the Tsiolkovsky has a Russian Starfleet placard, which seems to infer that the USSR actually still existed in 2363 when it was built. While investigating, Geordi finds a bunch of naked and frozen dead bodies with very carefully covered genitals and boobs. They actually kind of look like icy Renaissance paintings. Geordi catches an icy woman in the shower and, oops, infected. Maybe it's the fact that a pandemic and communicable diseases are at the forefront of all our minds right now, but throughout this entire episode I just kept thinking, what are you doing? Wear a mask, don't touch that, oh my god. So they bring Geordi back to sickbay where he starts acting like kind of a crazy jerk.
It was because you have it too hot in here. What else would it be?
So very smartly, Dr. Crusher confines Geordi to sickbay and then immediately loses him. Ugh. Great job, Doctor. Great job. Geordi goes and visits Wesley, who he decides to be nice to, and then touches his neck like you do. Infected. I touch all my friends' necks. They send Yar to go pick him up in the observation lounge, where she gets infected. Also, Geordi says a lot of weird, sad stuff about wanting human vision. The gang gets together to figure this one out, and Troy postulates that Geordi is showing signs of being intoxicated. Riker and Data start researching previous occurrences of this disease. Great idea. Hey, it's Gene Roddenberry as a bird, for some reason. Apparently his nickname was the Great Bird of the Galaxy. I am pretty sure no one ever called him that. How's it going, Great Bird of the Galaxy? They end up learning that the same thing happened on the original Enterprise A because, yep, this episode is just a rehash of the original series episode, The Naked Time. A very weird choice as your second episode, but they did it. The cause of the odd behavior is some kind of polywater which affects the brain like alcohol. They send the information to Crusher, who uses the old records to whip up a cure. Deanna comes back to her quarters to find Tasha Yar, who seems to have had a snootful.
Snootful?
And she wants to look snazzy. Deanna grabs Tasha's hand and infected.
Hey Mom, look what I can do!
Are you winning, son? And it looks like the party has started on the Enterprise. All right. Wesley uses his talk boy that he invented to fool engineering. Good job, Shimoda. Leaving Wesley in charge shows top-level decision-making. Infected. Drunk Wesley, mad with power, manages to commandeer the entire ship from engineering. Kinda seems like a big security flaw. I guess they did the command codes after this episode, huh? Hot and bothered Tasha Yar hits on the captain over the intercom.
Captain Picard.
Lieutenant, where are you?
I'm pretty busy right at the moment. Jean-Luc.
Picard then sends Data over to her quarters to bring her to sickbay. Yeah, I'm sure this is gonna go well. Now, we get one of the most famous scenes in Star Trek history.
You wanted me? I learned how to stay alive. How to avoid the rape gangs.
Ooh, nothing sets the mood for steamy sex like character exposition about rape gangs. Ugh.
From you, Data, you are fully functional, aren't you?
Of course, but
How fully?
programmed in multiple techniques. A broad variety of pleasuring.
Tasha Yar seduces Data. Infected. Fully functional, with multiple modes of pleasure, Data goes from being the first android in the galaxy to the first sentient Hitachi magic wand in the galaxy. They use alcohol as an analogy on the show, and I like how people act different when they get drunk. Some people get really horny, some people get really depressed, like Geordi, but Shimoda, yeah, he just likes to turn into an idiot and stack isolinear chips. So now the ship's engines are offline. Good job, Shimoda. An infected Deanna finds Riker. Bill Riker? Whew. Yeah, check out Bill Riker over here. Yeah, I'm calling him Bill Riker for the rest of the episode. Infected.
Wouldn't you rather be alone with me? With me in your mind?
Deanna confirms that Betazoids have weird, creepy mind sex like in Demolition Man. So Dr. Crusher makes a cure from the old Enterprise records, but it has no effect on Geordi, who continues to be the sad, emotional drunk at the party. Bill Riker brings Deanna into sickbay, and instead of saying anything, he just walks into Crusher's office and immediately touches her on the neck? Who does that? Infected. Picard tries to convince Wesley to get back his ship and fails miserably, while Bill and McDougal try to break into engineering because the star is beginning to explode and they can't go anywhere. Data comes back on the bridge, fully satisfied after what was clearly life-changing sex, and is also infected somehow. None of this makes any sense whatsoever, but I don't care because all of these scenes are absolutely hilarious. Then Dr. Crusher meets with Picard, and they are both extremely hot and bothered. I gotta say, this acting is so good. Gates McFadden struggling to hold on, and check out this grunt by Patrick Stewart. Incredible. This scene is amazing. Infected. Ooh, PicardWave.gif. I'm not gonna lie, all of these scenes are absolute gold. Then the star explodes and there's a stellar core fragment coming right for him. Shimoda, you are so fired. No wonder you don't show up in any other episodes. In fact, I'm sorry, McDougal, the entire engineering staff is fired. They're running out of time, but Kid Genius Wesley suggests that Data can get the isolinear chips back in place before they're destroyed by the core fragment. Oh man, Picard does that skip you do when you're on your way to a booty call. Gates McFadden and Patrick Stewart do drunk acting so well. This scene is perfect. Then at the last second, Crusher manages to craft a new and improved antidote. They're running out of time, but Tractor Beam Whiz Kid Wesley saves everyone's butts by sacrificing the Silkovsky. Ooh, good explosion effect. As they come back to reality and they're saved, the crew laments Wesley being their savior. Shimoda, you are so getting court-martialed. Tasha tells Data it never happened, like a bad one-night stand. But I see that glint in your eye, Tasha. It was good. All right, final thoughts and conclusions about The Naked Now. I'm extremely torn about this episode. Starting off, let's look at the writing credits. It says here that the story is by John D.F. Black and John Michael Bingham. So John D.F. Black wrote The Naked Time, which is the episode that this was based on from the original series. But who is J. Michael Bingham? Oh, it's actually longtime Trek writer DC Fontana again. It turns out she was so offended by Gene Roddenberry changing her script and adding gratuitous sex scenes to her story that she wanted her name removed from the credits. Fontana states, "No matter how good a script appeared to be, it would be rewritten by Gene Roddenberry. If possible, scenes of sexual content would be inserted into the script. When 2 such scenes were put into The Naked Now, in addition to 2 other scenes that I felt debased the female characters, I put my sentiments in a frankly worded memo." So I found out about this and I wanted to do some digging into Gene Roddenberry to try to figure out why is Star Trek so horny. And what I found out, from my armchair psychologist perspective, Gene Roddenberry was a drug-fueled sex addict. Here's a little history on the man whose personal life was so complicated that it necessitated the creation of its own Wikipedia page. So in 1942, Gene Roddenberry married Eileen Anita Rexroth before heading off to World War II. When he returned, he joined the LAPD, where he reportedly had many affairs with the secretarial staff. Then he went on to be a TV writer, where he was also well known to be a womanizer. Before working on Star Trek, he had open relationships with Nichelle Nichols and Majel Barrett, who would go on to become Lieutenant Uhura and Lwaxana Troi, among many other roles respectively. And before you go assuming that this forward-thinking 23rd century man was just living a consensual polyamorous life, let's just say he would pay his secretary bonuses to lie to his wife and mistresses, giving him alibis when he started messing around with other women. Apparently, during the first season of Star Trek the original series, Nichelle Nichols was found naked in Gene's office multiple times. Meanwhile, Roddenberry asked John D.F. Black, the original writer of The Naked Time, to interview an actress. That actress was actually Majel Barrett, and she stripped down and gave him a lap dance as a prank. Apparently, back in those days, Roddenberry would boast about late-night casting sessions with potential actresses while asking producers to lie to his wife. Alright, this one really got me. So during his daughter's wedding reception, Roddenberry wanted to embarrass his wife, whom he wanted to leave, by inviting an old girlfriend to attend so he could publicly regale an audience about how he seduced her during his marriage. Roddenberry ended up leaving his life, which was probably for the better, and married his longtime mistress Majel Barrett, before the divorce was finalized, of course. They were married in Japan, and he bragged to his friends that he had a sexual encounter with a Japanese masseuse a week after they were married. This is just my opinion, but I have a feeling that Majel Barrett was much more in tune with Gene's promiscuous lifestyle, judging by past stories and how she describes Lwaxana Troi as being very similar to herself. I'm reminded of Lwaxana Troi's big sexual energy. Additionally, after Star Trek the original series, Roddenberry pitched a television movie about Tarzan, which Paramount rejected for being too sexual for broadcast TV. Then he went on to write and produce a film called Pretty Maids All in a Row, which is described as a sexploitation film. The number of nude scenes was new to MGM, and they actually had difficulty coming to contractual terms with enough actresses to film them. Also, his executive assistant, Susan Sackett, was also a mistress of his from 1975 until his death in 1991. Okay. Roddenberry has been quoted as saying, "Star Trek is more than just my political philosophy, my racial philosophy, my overview of life, and the human condition." Which makes a lot of sense. And by more, he means it also includes a lot of sex. That's why Star Trek is so horny, because Gene Roddenberry is that horny all the time. History has been very kind to Gene Roddenberry, but by 21st century standards, he's pretty sketchy. He obviously used his positions of power to feed sexual addictions. And I wasn't there. I haven't interviewed all the women he's come across, but in my personal opinion, I'd award him several yikes. And I empathize with poor writer DC Fontana, busting her butt in Hollywood only to have her scripts turned into slash fiction by the lecherous man in charge. But enough dwelling on a man that's been dead for 30 years. Let's talk about the episode, about The Naked Now. This episode is one of the dumbest plots in all of The Next Generation. And yet, it's really hilarious. The acting performances are just laugh out loud funny, and it's probably actually the funniest episode of the entire series. It somehow manages to succeed in spite of itself. If this was the second episode of Star Trek I ever saw, it would be incredibly weird. But as a longtime fan, I had an absolute blast watching it. Additionally, I can appreciate a show that can display that it's cool to be both geeky and sexy at the same time. At least in 1987. Alright, you know what time it is. Computer, run a level 2 diagnostic on the episode The Naked Now. Alright, we're getting results on the horniness meter. This episode is 10 out of 10. Way too horny. Listen, I've spent way too long talking about the sexcapades of this episode. We all knew it was gonna be a 10 out of 10. You know, I just gotta do it formally so you know. I mean, I'd give it a 13 out of 10 if that was possible. Our second metric over here at Trek Watch is the PTSD meter. Many episodes have the crew go through events that would shatter the psyche of a normal person. In this episode, I'm gonna give it a 1. The only psychological damage in this episode is akin to the awkwardness you felt when you hooked up with your coworkers after hours at that party one time. It's fine, you'll get over it. Our third and final metric over here at Trek Watch is the thought-provoking meter. Star Trek is at its best when it teaches us something about ourselves or life itself. I gotta say, I'm gonna have to give this episode a fat 0. Nothing was learned. The only thing we learned is that predatory men in Hollywood were in charge for far too long. And while we may enjoy some of the media that was made, screw that. Alright, let's go to the tier list. My goal for this series is to rank every single The Next Generation episode against each other in a classic tier list. Like I said before, I am really conflicted on this one. Part of me loves this episode, and the other part of me absolutely hates it. I'm gonna have to go with a C here. I absolutely would not blame you if you thought differently, but that's just where I gotta put it. Hey, thanks for sticking around. My name is Danimal Cannon. Be sure to subscribe to see more episodes of Trek Watch. What did you think? What did I miss? What did I get wrong? Let me know down in the comments. Let's ride out this episode with a montage of our favorite characters and the best faces they made during this absolutely bonkers episode. Peace.
Subscribe to Trek Watch?
Of course, but
How? Subscribed.
in every way, of course.
I liked, subscribed, and rang the bell.